I don't have a formal press release prepared at this point, but I do want to update you at least on some information that we have. Most of you I talked to earlier this morning. I'll let you know what the fire conditions were. I'll let you know that we had 5 victims. I think that's all well known at this point. What I can tell you now is that the fire investigators are pretty much finished with what they're going to do here. They've determined a area of origin being in a back room, closed-in porch area, which was on the rear of 217 West 2nd Street. In regards to the cause of the fire, all they can rule out right now is that there was no criminal intent. We believe this to be an accidental fire, and that's as much as we know at this point. We're going to remain determining this as an undetermined fire cause at this point. From there, I'll just take questions.
Can you give any more details on the identity of the victims and whether that was one family or?
4 of the victims were 3 children and their mother. Of that same family, 2 children and their father made it out of the house. The 5th victim was a neighbor, and it was a single elderly gentleman. I do not have their identity or their names at this time.
Do you know what part of the building they lived?
The family, the 3 children and the mother were found on the upper floor of Unit 219 in the rear of the building. That's the best I can tell you.
Can you talk about the mom going back inside to try to rescue the children?
You know, I'm not even sure that that's accurate at this point. I know for sure that the father was in and out of the building several times. I'm not sure that the mother was out and then back in. I've heard that several times this morning, and I'm not sure if that's just speculation or to be accurate.
Any idea on fire alarms or fire?
There were active smoke detectors in Unit 217, which was the unit with the single death. Unit 219, there were no working smoke detectors. One was found mounted to a ceiling in the children's bedroom with the battery out of it.
Can you say where the victims were found?
Again, they were found in the rear portion, 2nd floor of Unit 219. 4 of the 5 were found there.
Were they together? Did it appear they were close to us?
Absolutely. It was very evident that they were trying to get out.
So there was no working smoke detector in the building where the 4 family members found.
That's correct.
Did you say ages?
I'm sorry?
Ages?
Honestly, I don't know that accurately as well. I know there were some very young children, 1 to 2 years old, up to about 10 or 12, but I don't know those ages accurately.
These buildings are obviously very, very old, 1840s, side by side. How did that hamper it? Because it obviously jumped when it got to the attic.
It did. Believe it or not, even in the 1840s, they built these buildings with fire suppression and fire containment in mind. Most of them have firewalls in between them. The problem is that over years we add on to these buildings. We put holes or put accesses through those firewalls, which allow that fire to jump from one attic area to another, and that's part of the issue with the fire spread this morning. I'm not sure if that had any impact on what happened with the victims, but it did certainly have an effect on the fire growth.
Did you have to take a defensive position when you got here? Was there any chance of an interior attack?
No, we did make an interior attack. First with the crew from the bottom floor, tried to get up the stairwell. The stairwell was weakening. Heavy fire conditions pushed that crew back out. At that time, we sent a crew up the ladder and into the 2nd story window, the front of the building. They made it about halfway back when the roof in the back portion of that building started collapsing, and we knew that there was no survivable space in the rear of that portion, which is where the victims ended up being, and it was at that time when we made the call to pull out.
No injuries among firefighters?
Absolutely not.
And how many firefighters participated?
You know, I couldn't even guess. We had approximately 20 from our department on scene. We had Washington Volunteer Fire Department, Fernleaf Volunteer Fire Department, and a few members of Lewisburg Volunteer Fire Department on scene, and I would estimate another 15 or 20 from those departments combined, so about 40.
Do we know how many people were displaced?
I don't know an accurate number. I would guess in the range of 30.
And are they being, I understood that the accommodations will be inside of Blue Wicks?
That may very well be possible. I'm not aware of that.
How many were injured?
No injuries other than the 5 fatalities.
Chief, very emotional. Even many, many hours later, what we have here, the loss here. Describe your emotions, which obviously you're having a hard time containing.
Absolutely. Wouldn't you? You know, I just took over as chief 2 months ago. Certainly not how I would have started this chapter of my career.
Have you ever had a fire of this magnitude with loss of life?
We've never had a 5-count fatality in Maysville. I believe the most we've ever had has been 3, and that's occurred since I've been with the department, but never 5, so no.
Can you talk about the loss to this community?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're a relatively small town. Kind of everybody knows everybody sort of thing, and people are generally pretty neighborly here. So absolutely, there's going to be an emotional impact, not only to neighbors and friends, but to anybody in the community. None that I'm aware of at this point.
Have there been any inspections of the buildings recently?
There have not. The one building was only split into 2 units, and the one was a single family dwelling, so we would have not done an inspection unless there was some type of building construction inspection that I'm not aware of.
Is the rest of the building directly south?
It's not. We can gain access to a large portion of all 3 buildings that were heavily affected, but the upper floors are pretty much off limits.
So how much may have to be demolished, do you think?
Eventually, I think possibly all 3 buildings, which is going to be, again, units 2, 17, 19, and 221.
Your area of origin, can you describe the use of that again? You mentioned, is it living space, like sleeping and daily living space, recreational?
It appeared to be more like an enclosed porch. It was between the 217 and 219 units. There were windows or doors from both units that went to the inside of that porch, which is what allowed the fire to spread into both units very quickly. When it spread into Unit 217, that allowed it to be on the opposite side of the firewall, which is why we had such heavy fire and smoke conditions upon our arrival.
Spread pretty quickly, I mean...
Absolutely. You know, with the type of construction that these row houses are essentially a large pile of kindling. And once it got started, absolutely, we had heavy fire conditions that spread very rapidly, and obviously that had an impact on our ability to make an aggressive interior attack. Yeah. I'd like to finish just by saying that the city of Maysville is very saddened by this. I know that each one of my members of the Maysville Fire Department are struggling, and we just send our condolences out to the family because I can't imagine what they're feeling.
Did you know them?
I knew of them. I had been down before to talk to them about some other issues. I actually talked to the mother about her kids. I have some kids that are similar ages, but that's the extent of how I knew them. Okay? Thank you.
What's your name, sir?